I was 38 years old, a man people liked to call self-made. They didn't know the nights I spent sweeping out auto shops in Birmingham, or the deals I risked everything on in Dallas when I was still eating canned beans for dinner. To the world, I was Robert Hayes, a millionaire with a glass office overlooking the skyline, a mansion in Frisco, a wife people envied, and twin babies who had become the only pure thing in my life. But the morning I walked into my office and saw my brand new secretary holding those twins in her arms, my heart froze. Keisha stood there, rocking them as if she had carried them inside her own body. Her dark eyes flicked up at me, calm, unshaken, while mine went wide with panic. My chest burned like someone had ripped the air out of the room. She wasn't supposed to be near them. She wasn't supposed to touch them. In my head, I heard one voice. She's trying to replace Elaine. She's crossing the line. I rushed forward, every instinct screaming to pull my children back. But before I could say a word, Keisha whispered something that made the world tilt under my feet. These babies look just like my brothers. The office air went ice cold. My blood roared so loud I couldn't hear the hum of the building anymore. How could she possibly know that? Why would she say something so outrageous? And why, when Elaine walked in seconds later, did she avoid my eyes like a child caught stealing? Let me ask you something. What would you have done if you walked into your office, found another woman holding your children, and she claimed they resembled her own flesh and blood? Would you grab your babies and fire her on the spot? Or would you freeze the way I did, because something in her voice told you she wasn't lying? I wanted to scream, but my throat closed up. I demanded, "What did you just say?" Keisha didn't flinch. She looked at me with a quiet strength, the kind you don't get from books or money, but from surviving storms most people never see. "I said," she repeated, "they look like my brother's kids." Elaine's heels clicked on the marble floor behind me. I turned, waiting for her to laugh, to dismiss the nonsense. But she didn't. She kept her eyes down, fumbling with her purse like the straps had tied themselves in knots. That was the first crack in the life I thought I built. I spent the rest of that day trapped in a cage inside my own mind. Every deal I'd ever negotiated, every fight I'd won to climb from nothing to everything, I had never felt this powerless. Keisha's words replayed like a broken record. My wife's silence replayed even louder. I cornered Elaine that night, the twins finally asleep upstairs. What the hell was that about? I demanded. Why would Keisha say something like that? Elaine's face stayed smooth, polished like marble. But her eyes, God, her eyes told me everything. They darted, they trembled, they screamed at me to stop asking questions I wasn't ready to hear answers to. She said softly, "Robert, don't do this." "Don't do what?" I snapped. My voice cracked against the mansion walls. "Don't ask why my secretary thinks my children look like her family." She turned her back, her shoulders stiff as glass. "You don't want the truth." Those words stuck in my chest like glass shards. Now, I'll be honest with you. I've handled betrayal in business. Partners stabbing me in the back, investors pulling out last second, rivals trying to ruin me. But betrayal inside your own home? That's not a deal you walk away from. That's the kind that eats your bones from the inside. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I watched my twins in their cribs, memorizing their faces. Their perfect little noses, their curious eyes. But then Keisha's words cut through the quiet again. They look just like my brothers. And then the memory hit me. A night years ago. Elaine disappearing without explanation, gone for hours, claiming she was visiting an old friend. I never pressed her then. I was too busy building my empire, too naive to imagine she'd slip away into someone else's arms. But now that missing night linked itself to the name Keisha had said. Derek. Derek. I knew that name. I remembered it from whispers. A man connected to Elaine's past. A man who, if I was honest with myself, I had always felt her silence wrap around. I didn't want to believe it, but the dots connected whether I liked it or not. By morning, my world had tilted on its axis. My wife's eyes, my secretary's words, my own pounding heart, they all pushed me toward a truth I wasn't ready to face. And yet, part of me needed it. So I asked Keisha, face to face, who exactly her brother was. And when she said his name out loud, it was like someone had punched the ground beneath my feet, sending cracks racing through the life I thought was solid. I couldn't stop hearing his name in my head. Derek. It rolled around like thunder that never broke into rain. I asked Keisha again, half hoping I'd misheard, half praying she'd laugh it off as some cruel mistake. But she didn't. She said it clear, steady, with no hesitation. My brother's name is Derek. The silence after that was heavier than any deal I'd ever sat through in a boardroom. I studied her face, searching for cracks, for signs she was bluffing. But she didn't look away. She just let the truth hang there between us, sharp and unavoidable. That night, Elaine tried to pretend everything was fine. She laid out dinner, poured wine, smiled in that rehearsed way women sometimes do when they know the floor beneath them is about to give way. But she couldn't hide the tremor in her hand when she set down the glass. I asked her again, "Why does Keisha think our children look like her brother?" Elaine's lips parted, but nothing came out. Then she did something I didn't expect. She smiled. A small, almost pitying smile. "You're being paranoid, Robert." Paranoid. That word stabbed me deeper than any confession could have. It was the same word my father used when I caught him slipping bills out of my mother's purse, the same word old business partners used when they were cutting deals behind my back. Paranoid meant they knew I was right. The more she tried to act normal, the more I knew nothing about our life was normal anymore. Every detail felt suspicious. Every late-night phone call, every unexplained errand, every moment she pulled away when I reached for her. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. I started watching her. And the more I watched, the more her lies shined like glass in the sun. A week later, I noticed Keisha slipping into my office early, carrying a manila envelope tucked under her arm. She glanced at me, then at the floor, as if she wasn't sure if handing it over would burn the bridge we were standing on. Inside were photographs. Elaine and Derek together. Not in some shady hotel room, but in quiet moments. At a coffee shop. At a park bench. Standing too close, leaning into each other like people who shared a secret the world didn't deserve to know. My chest caved in. I had prepared myself for rumors, for whispers, but not for proof burned onto glossy paper. I held those pictures so tight the edges cut into my hands. I didn't yell. I didn't throw them in Elaine's face. I carried them like a man carrying his own death certificate, folded into his pocket, pretending the world was still spinning. And that's when Keisha leaned forward, her voice soft but loaded with something I didn't expect. Pity. "You need to know the truth, Mr. Hayes. Not just for you, but for those babies upstairs." Her words landed harder than the photographs. The truth. The truth was the last thing I wanted, but the only thing I couldn't live without. So I told her something that surprised even me. Get me proof. Real proof. I don't care how. DNA, whatever it takes. I need to know if those children are mine. Saying it out loud nearly split me in half. I loved those twins more than my own life. But love didn't erase doubt. and doubt was already eating me alive. Keisha nodded once, slow, like she'd been waiting for me to finally say it. From that moment on, it wasn't just about Elaine's betrayal anymore. It was about my children. It was about the blood in their veins. It was about whether everything I thought I'd built was real, or just a lie with a pretty face. I told myself I wanted the DNA test for clarity, for closure. But deep down, I already knew what terrified me most. What if the results proved everything I was afraid of? What if I wasn't their father at all? I remember the night I finally made the decision. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that makes you hear things you wish you didn't, like the ticking of the old clock in the hallway, or the faint creak of floorboards when no one's supposed to be moving. I was sitting at the edge of the bed, my hands buried in my face, trying not to look at Elaine beside me. She was scrolling on her phone, smiling faintly at something, but the smile wasn't for me. It hadn't been for me in a long time. I thought back to when we first met. Elaine had a way of lighting up a room, not with loudness, but with presence. She'd walk in, and suddenly you felt like you had to stand straighter, speak sharper, just to match her. I fell for that. I fell for her fire, her drive, her beauty. And for a while, I thought she fell for me too. But memories don't always age well. They twist when you replay them under suspicion. A simple laugh in the past could turn into a warning sign you ignored. A night apart could become proof you were already losing her. Now all I could think about was Derek. Derek's name. Derek's face I'd never seen, but could picture too well from Keisha's words and those photographs. My stomach turned at the thought that my wife had once held him the way she used to hold me. That she had maybe loved him more. That she might still. I had to know the truth. The next morning, I picked up the twins from their cribs myself. I studied them like a man searching for a reflection. Their little hands, their soft cheeks, the way their eyes seemed to follow me no matter where I moved. Were those my eyes? Or his? Elaine walked in, surprised to see me holding both at once. She gave me a smile, but it didn't touch her eyes. "You're up early," she said. "I couldn't sleep," I told her flatly. She tilted her head, watching me too closely. For a second, I thought she could read my mind. Like she already knew the test I was planning, the questions I was asking. She leaned in and kissed one of the babies on the forehead, then brushed past me to the closet. The smell of her perfume lingered in the air, but it only made me feel sick. Later that day, I pulled Keisha into my office. I didn't bother with small talk. I told her I wanted to move forward with the test. Quietly. No one could know, especially Elaine. Keisha didn't flinch. She just nodded like she'd already expected this. "I'll handle it," she said softly. "But you need to be prepared for what you might find." I laughed, but it came out dry and broken. Prepared? How the hell does a man prepare to find out his whole life might be a lie? She didn't answer. She just looked at me with something I hadn't seen in a long time. Compassion. Not pity, not judgment, just understanding. It almost broke me more than the thought of the test. Days stretched into weeks while I waited for the right moment. I moved like a ghost in my own house, pretending everything was fine. Smiling when Elaine's friends came over, holding her hand at dinners, playing the part of the perfect husband. But inside, I was crumbling. I started avoiding mirrors because all I saw was a man who might be raising another man's children. At night, I watched Elaine. Not in the way a husband admires his wife, but in the way a detective studies a suspect. The way she whispered on the phone, saying she was talking to her sister but cutting the call too fast. The way she guarded her purse like it was full of secrets instead of receipts. The way she touched the twins sometimes, gentle, protective, almost guilty. One night, I asked her out of nowhere, "Do you ever think about him?" She froze. "Think about who?" "You know who," I said quietly. Her eyes narrowed, her voice sharp. "You're imagining things, Robert. You've been stressed. You're seeing ghosts where there aren't any." Maybe she was right. Maybe stress was twisting me into someone unrecognizable. But maybe ghosts don't show up unless they have a reason. I finally found my chance when Elaine left for a girls' weekend in Houston. She packed quickly, kissed the babies goodbye, and avoided my eyes like she always did now. I watched her drive away, my chest tight, my mind screaming. The second she was gone, I called Keisha. Together, we collected the swabs, my hands shaking the whole time. The twins looked up at me with innocent eyes, no clue about the storm raging over their heads. I told myself I was doing it for them, for their future, but the truth? I was doing it because I couldn't breathe until I knew. We sealed the samples, sent them off, and then all that was left was waiting. Waiting was its own kind of torture. Every sound in the house felt louder, every second stretched longer. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't think straight. At night, I lay in bed next to Elaine, pretending to sleep, listening to the rhythm of her breathing. I wondered if she knew I was unraveling beside her. I wondered if she was afraid of the same results I was waiting for. The worst part was the twins. They'd reach for me, call out in their small voices, and I'd hold them with all the love I had left in me. But in the back of my mind, a question cut through everything. What if they weren't mine? And if they weren't, could I still love them the same? I didn't know the answer. I only knew that the day the results arrived, my life would either steady itself or shatter beyond repair. The results came on a Wednesday. I still remember the envelope, thin and harmless looking, resting on my desk like it wasn't carrying the weight of my whole existence inside. My hands trembled as I picked it up. For a long time, I just stared at it, afraid to tear it open. Afraid to see the words that would either save me or destroy me. Keisha was there, sitting across from me. She didn't push. She just waited. Finally, I slid my finger under the seal and unfolded the paper. My eyes scanned the lines, hunting for the part that mattered. Probability of paternity, 0%. The room spun. My chest tightened until I thought I was having a heart attack. I read it again, slower, hoping I'd misread. But it didn't change. The twins weren't mine. I dropped the paper. My hands went to my face, and for a second, I couldn't breathe. The walls felt too close, the air too thin. Every memory of holding them, feeding them, rocking them to sleep, every tender moment cracked like glass. They weren't mine. The words kept screaming in my head, "Not yours, not yours, not yours." Keisha's voice broke through the storm. "I'm so sorry." I lifted my head and looked at her. She had tears in her eyes, not for herself, but for me. That made me lose it even more. My whole body shook, not with rage, but with grief so raw it felt like my soul had been carved out. That night, when Elaine came home, I didn't greet her. I waited in the living room, the envelope on the table in front of me. She walked in, setting her purse down, humming like nothing in the world was wrong. Then she saw it. Her face froze. I didn't have to say a word. She knew. Slowly, she sat down across from me. Her hands folded in her lap, her head bowed like a child waiting for punishment. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to throw every broken piece of my heart at her. But my voice came out low, almost calm. "Tell me the truth." Elaine's eyes filled with tears. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, in a whisper, she said, I never meant for it to go this far." Her confession burned more than a slap. She talked about Derek, about the past she couldn't let go of, about how one mistake turned into a secret that grew like a disease in our home. She swore she still loved me, swore she never stopped. But love, when poisoned by lies, doesn't taste like love anymore. It tastes like ash. I sat there, listening, but I felt like I was floating above my own body, watching a man whose life was being dismantled piece by piece. When she finished, silence filled the space between us. "Finally," I said, "you broke me." Her tears fell harder, but I didn't reach for her. I couldn't. The woman I married was gone. The life I thought I had was gone. All that was left was a stranger sitting in front of me, begging for forgiveness I didn't have to give. In the days that followed, the house became a battlefield of silence. I avoided Elaine. She avoided me. We both pretended for the twins' sake, but the truth hung in every room like smoke you couldn't clear out. One evening, Keisha found me alone in my office. She didn't say much, just set a cup of coffee in front of me and sat down. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. She looked at me with quiet strength, the kind that made me realize she had been carrying her own pain all along. After all, Derek was her brother. And now she had to watch me unravel because of him. I looked at her and asked, "Why are you helping me?" She held my gaze. "Because lies don't deserve to win." Those words hit me hard. For the first time since the truth came out, I felt a spark of something other than despair. It wasn't hope, not yet. But it was the beginning of a fight. I didn't know where this road would lead, whether I'd burn my marriage to the ground, whether I'd ever feel whole again, whether I could keep loving the twins despite the blood in their veins. But I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't stay silent anymore. The mansion didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a stage where we acted out roles neither of us believed in. Elaine still dressed the part of the perfect wife, lipstick, hair polished, smile rehearsed, but when our eyes met, all I saw was guilt. And when she tried to touch me, I pulled away. The weight of her betrayal sat between us at every meal, every night in bed, every morning when she poured her coffee like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I spent more time in my office, staring out over the city I had fought so hard to conquer. Deals that once excited me now felt hollow. The only thing that mattered, the only thing, was figuring out how to survive the wreckage Elaine left behind. Keisha became my anchor in those weeks. She didn't push, didn't flood me with advice, didn't treat me like a broken man. She just showed up. Brought files when I couldn't focus, handled the details of my business when my mind was too scattered. Some nights, when I stayed at the office long after everyone else had gone, she would sit across from me in silence. That silence was different from Elaine's. It wasn't hiding anything. It was steady, clean, safe. One night, I asked her something that had been clawing at me. "How long did you know?" Keisha didn't look away. I suspected when I first saw them. But I didn't want to believe it either. Not until the test. I let out a bitter laugh. "So, I was the last one to know." She shook her head gently. "No, Robert. You were the only one brave enough to face it." Her words hit me harder than I expected. Brave wasn't how I felt. I felt gutted, humiliated, destroyed. But hearing her say it gave me just enough strength to breathe. Meanwhile, Elaine grew desperate. She started trying harder, cooking my favorite meals, slipping her hand onto mine at the dinner table, whispering apologies in the dark when she thought I was asleep. She begged me to forgive her, to remember the love we once had, to think about the twins and not tear our family apart. But every time I looked at her, I saw Derek's shadow. One evening, she cornered me in the kitchen. Her voice broke as she said, "You can hate me, but don't hate them. They're innocent, Robert. They need you." The words cut deep. Because she was right. The twins were innocent. They hadn't asked to be born into a lie. And despite everything, when they reached for me with their small hands, I couldn't stop loving them. Blood didn't change that. My heart did. But that didn't erase what Elaine had done. I looked her in the eye and said, "I'll never stop loving them. But you killed us." She cried harder, but I walked away. The truth is, betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it changes your soul. And once that shift happens, there's no going back. A week later, I made a decision. I called Keisha into my office and told her I wanted to know everything about Derek. Where he was, what he was doing, why Elaine had held on to him like a ghost she couldn't let go of. Her eyes flickered with something sharp, anger, maybe, or maybe just the weight of knowing she was caught between family and loyalty. "You're sure?" she asked quietly. "I need to see him," I said. My voice was steady for the first time in weeks. "I need to look him in the eye and hear it from him. No more secrets. No more shadows." Keisha nodded, though I could see the storm in her expression. "I'll help you. But when this happens, nothing will ever be the same." "Nothing is the same already," I told her. And in that moment, I knew the path ahead wasn't about saving my marriage anymore. It wasn't even about proving betrayal. It was about reclaiming myself, piece by piece, no matter what truth I had to face. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. I froze the first time Elaine caught me watching her with the twins after the truth came out. They were in the playroom, their little hands clutching blocks, laughter filling the air. Elaine bent down, kissed their curls, and whispered something soft. To anyone else, it looked like a picture-perfect moment of motherhood. But to me, every smile, every touch carried the shadow of betrayal. You ever look at someone you love and feel like you're staring at a stranger? That's what it was like. My wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, had kept a secret so big it rewrote our whole life. And yet, I couldn't stop loving the children. That's the part that tore me apart. I started staying at the office later, burying myself in contracts, zoning out into the city lights, anything to drown out the storm. Keisha noticed. She always noticed. She'd slide a coffee onto my desk without saying a word, her eyes soft but steady. Sometimes, she'd stay late too, helping with the backlog, letting silence settle between us like an understanding we didn't have to name. One night, she broke it. "You don't have to keep pretending you're made of stone, Robert." Her words caught me off guard. Nobody talked to me like that. Not my business partners, not my wife, not even my so-called friends. But Keisha did. She cut through the noise. "Stone doesn't break," I muttered. "People do." She leaned forward, her voice low but firm. "Then stop carrying this alone. You're not the only one who got burned." That line stayed with me. She wasn't just talking about me, she was talking about Derek. About her family. About the way betrayal spreads like fire, leaving nothing untouched. I wanted to ask her more, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I drowned in work again. The next morning, Elaine showed up at my office without warning. She wore her brightest smile, the one that used to melt me, but now it just looked desperate. "We need to talk," she said. The room went quiet. Keisha was there, filing papers. The tension cracked through the air. Elaine's eyes flicked to her, then back to me. "Alone," she added. I looked at Keisha. She gave me the smallest nod before slipping out, though I could feel her hesitation as she closed the door. Elaine wasted no time. "I know what you're thinking," she said, her voice trembling. But it wasn't like that. It wasn't love, Robert. It was a mistake. A mistake. That's what she called it. I stood, pacing to the window, fists clenched. A mistake doesn't give me children that look like another man. Her eyes filled with tears. Please, don't take them from me. Don't ruin this family. We can survive this. That word, survive, hit me hard. Survive what? A marriage built on lies? A family balanced on secrets? I didn't want survival. I wanted truth. And the truth was out there, wearing Derek's face. The more Elaine begged, the colder I felt. She thought this was about forgiveness, but it wasn't. It was about ownership of the truth. And I couldn't keep pretending I didn't need answers. That night, I told Keisha, I want to meet him. Your brother. I need to see him with my own eyes. Her expression darkened. She hesitated, biting her lip. Robert, if you open that door, there's no shutting it again. I already opened it the day I walked into this office and saw my whole life fall apart. Keisha sighed, almost like she pitied me. But she nodded. Then I'll set it up. And just like that, the path shifted. Elaine thought I was fighting to save, or end, our marriage. She had no idea I was about to confront the ghost she had hidden all along. The real war wasn't between me and her. It was between me and the man who broke into my life without ever stepping foot in it. What would you have done in my place? Walk away, or demand the truth no matter how deep it cut? Because me. I was ready to bleed. The first time I laid eyes on Derek, it felt like staring into a mirror I never asked for. He walked into that cafe like he owned the air in the room, tall, confident, with a presence that made people turn their heads. And when his eyes landed on me, something in my chest tightened. He didn't flinch, didn't stumble. He just looked straight at me, like he already knew this day was coming. Keisha had set it up quietly, but I could tell she was torn. She sat at the table beside us, pretending to scroll through her phone, but her eyes flicked up every few seconds. She wanted to protect both of us, though she knew only one of us would walk away whole. You're Robert, Derek said, sliding into the seat across from me. His tone was calm, almost too calm, like he'd rehearsed this in his head. And you're the man who turned my life into a lie. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. That silence cut deeper than words. He wasn't denying it. He wasn't defending himself. For a long moment, we just stared, two men bound by a betrayal neither of us chose. Then he leaned forward, elbows on the table. You think I wanted this? He asked. You think I planned for her to come to me that night? She showed up broken, Robert. I didn't go looking for your wife. She came looking for me. The words burned. I could feel them crawling under my skin. Elaine's version had been all about mistakes and regrets. Derek's version was about choice. About a night she chose to cross the line. You expect me to believe you didn't push it? Didn't take advantage? I spat back. His voice hardened. I'm not proud of what happened. But I won't let you paint me as the devil while she walks around playing victim. You deserve the truth. And the truth is, your wife wanted to escape. From what, I don't know. But she wasn't running to me. She was running away from you. That hit like a blade straight to the gut. I wanted to hit him. To break something. To shout until the whole cafe fell silent. But instead, I sat there, gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. Keisha shifted in her seat, sensing the storm brewing. Her eyes begged me not to lose it. Let me ask you one thing, I said finally, my voice low and sharp. Do you love them? The kids. His face softened. That was the worst part, because the answer was written all over him before he spoke. Yes, he whispered. More than I can say. But they're yours, Robert. They'll always be yours. I won't take that from you. That line should have calmed me, but it didn't. It lit a new fire. Because it wasn't just about what he wanted, it was about what Elaine wanted. And she had already proven where her loyalties could bend. I stood, tossing a few bills on the table. You already took everything that mattered. Don't pretend you're giving me anything. When I walked out, Keisha followed, her face pale. She didn't speak until we reached the car. You're not done, are you? She asked quietly. No, I said, my voice steady, almost cold. I've only just started. And she knew what I meant. Elaine thought she could bargain for forgiveness. Derek thought he could bury his guilt under good intentions. But me, I was about to tear open every secret they tried to hide and make them face it. The line between love and revenge was gone. Now, it was just survival, and I wasn't sure whose heart would be left standing when the dust cleared. Elaine was waiting when I got home. The twins were asleep, their toys scattered across the living room floor like tiny reminders of everything I stood to lose. She was sitting on the couch, hands clenched together, eyes red from crying. You met him, didn't you? She asked before I could even set down my keys. I didn't answer right away. I wanted to see if she'd squirm, if she'd choke on the silence. And she did. Her whole body tensed like she already knew what Derek had told me. He said you went to him, I finally said. That it wasn't just some mistake. You chose it. Her face broke. Robert, please. You don't understand what it was like back then. You were working all the time, chasing deals, chasing money. I felt invisible. And then, don't. I cut her off. My voice was sharper than I intended, but I couldn't hold it back. Don't put this on me. You could have talked to me. You could have screamed at me, left me, anything. But you went to him. My blood, my family. And now you want me to pretend this was about loneliness. Her lips trembled. I was weak. I know that. But it's over, Robert. It's been over. Those kids, they're ours. They're our life. Don't punish them for something they never asked for. I looked at her then, really looked. She was right about one thing. The kids didn't deserve this. But the image of Derek's eyes, full of something he couldn't hide, kept flashing in my mind. He loved them too. And that meant no matter how hard I tried, he'd always be standing in the shadows of our family. I couldn't live like that. That night, I went to Keisha's place. She opened the door like she'd been waiting for me, no surprise in her face, just that quiet, steady strength that made me feel like I wasn't drowning. You look like hell, she said softly. I feel worse. She poured me a drink, sat across from me, and let me spill everything. About Derek. About Elaine. About the way my heart felt split down the middle, half bound to kids that weren't mine, half chained to a wife I couldn't trust. Keisha didn't interrupt. She didn't pity me either. When I finally stopped, she leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. You're standing on a knife's edge, Robert. You can either cut yourself open trying to hold everything together, or you can decide who you want to be without them. Her words scared me. Because the more time I spent near her, the more I realized I wanted that second option. To step off the knife's edge. To start over. But starting over meant burning the life I had built, and I wasn't sure I had the strength to strike the match. The breaking point came 2 days later. Elaine showed up at my office again, unannounced. But this time, She wasn't begging. She was furious. You went behind my back, she snapped, slamming the door shut. You met him. How dare you? I didn't flinch. I needed the truth. You needed me, she shot back, her eyes blazing. But instead, you ran to him. To her. To everyone but your own wife. You think you're the only one hurt here? You think I haven't been paying every single day for what I did? The rage in her voice was real, but so was the desperation. She was losing her grip on me, and she knew it. You don't get to play the victim, I said coldly. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. She stepped closer, tears brimming again. And what is that, Robert? What choice are you making? To destroy this family? To leave me? To throw away the only love you've ever had? I stared at her for a long moment. And then, slowly, I whispered the truth I hadn't wanted to admit even to myself. I don't know if I love you anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. Her face crumbled, like I'd ripped the ground out from under her. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes, not of losing her reputation, not of the secret getting out, but of losing me. She left without another word. And as the door closed behind her, Keisha appeared in the hall, holding a file but watching me like she had heard everything. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to, because in that moment, something shifted between us. The marriage wasn't just cracking, it was shattering. And in the empty space left behind, Keisha was the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. But here's the part no one tells you. Sometimes the person holding you together is the same person pulling you further from who you used to be. And I could feel it happening, one breath at a time. I didn't plan on falling into Keisha's world, it just happened. One night blurred into another, my late hours at the office turning into quiet dinners with her, sometimes just take-out cartons on her couch while the city lights painted shadows across her living room. I told myself it was harmless, that it was just friendship, but the truth was uglier. I was leaning on her in ways I no longer leaned on my wife. She never pushed. That's what made it dangerous. Keisha knew when to stay quiet, when to let me breathe, when to slip in a sharp truth that cut deeper than I expected. With her, there were no masks. I didn't have to pretend I was strong. And that honesty felt more intoxicating than any lie Elaine ever told. One evening, after a long silence, Keisha finally said it. You keep looking at me like I'm the answer, Robert. But I'm not. I can't fix what's broken in you. Her voice shook me. Because she was right, I wasn't just searching for comfort. I was searching for escape. Still, I couldn't stay away. Meanwhile, Elaine wasn't sitting idle. She sensed the distance widening, and instead of pulling back, she doubled down. She started showing up everywhere, at my office, at lunches with colleagues, even outside the building late at night. Always with that same desperate smile, like if she performed normalcy hard enough, it would erase the betrayal. One night she ambushed me in the driveway. The kids were asleep inside, the house quiet, but she stood there under the porch light, arms crossed, eyes blazing. I know what's happening with you and her, she said. Her words hit me like a slap. There's nothing happening, I lied, though even as I said it, the guilt burned in my throat. Elaine laughed bitterly. Don't insult me, Robert. I see it in your face. I hear it in the way you say her name. You think I'm the only one who betrayed this marriage? Look at you. That cut deep because, for the first time, she wasn't wrong. I hated that she had ground to stand on. But instead of backing down, I snapped. You don't get to talk about betrayal like you're the victim here. You blew this up, Elaine. You made this mess. I'm just trying to survive it. She stepped closer, tears forming, but her voice hard as steel. "If you think you're going to replace me with her, you're out of your mind. I won't let you take my children and build a new life with that woman. I'll fight you, Robert, with everything I have." Her threat lingered long after she stormed inside. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about love or lies anymore. This was about war. A war where the battlefield was our home, and the prize was everything I held dear. Later that night, I told Keisha what Elaine had said. She didn't look surprised. She just shook her head slowly. "She's not going to go quietly," Keisha murmured. "She'll use whatever weapon she has left. And if that means turning those kids into shields, she will." The thought made me sick. But Keisha wasn't finished. "You need to decide what you're willing to lose, Robert. Because Elaine already decided. And Derek," she trailed off, then looked at me squarely. "Derek will never truly let go either." Her words echoed in my head long after I left. I was caught in a triangle with no clean escape. Every choice carried blood, heartbreak, or betrayal. And yet, deep down, I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't keep living in the middle. Something had to break. And I was starting to realize that something might be me. Elaine didn't waste time making good on her threat. Within a week, I was served with papers, custody petitions, demands, accusations written in cold legal language that twisted every flaw I'd ever had into ammunition against me. She painted me as unstable, unfaithful, reckless. She wasn't just fighting for her children, she was fighting to erase me from their lives. I remember sitting in my office, the papers spread across the desk, my hands shaking. Keisha walked in without knocking, saw the mess, and froze. "She's really doing it," she whispered. I nodded, unable to speak. 4 years, I thought Elaine would never go that far. But betrayal changes people. Love curdles into vengeance, and once it does, there's no turning back. Keisha stepped closer, resting her hand on the edge of the desk. "Robert, you can't fight her alone. She'll drag you through the mud until there's nothing left. You need to be smarter than her. Colder." Her words unsettled me, but I knew she was right. The more Elaine attacked, the more I wanted to lean into Keisha's steadiness. It scared me how natural it felt to trust her, how her voice could cut through the chaos like a lifeline. But the line between lifeline and leash was blurring. That weekend, Elaine cornered me again, this time at the house. The kids were upstairs, music from their tablet echoing faintly through the ceiling, while Elaine stood in the kitchen, arms folded, eyes sharp. "You're not going to win this," she said flatly. "The court will believe me. They'll see what kind of man you really are." I wanted to laugh, but it came out more like a growl. "The kind of man I really am. The kind who built this family from nothing while you were lying in someone else's bed." Her hand trembled against the counter, but she didn't back down. "Say whatever you want about me, but you won't steal my children. They're mine. And if you think Keisha's going to step into my place, you're delusional. She'll never be their mother." Her words hit harder than I expected, not because they were true, but because they exposed the thing I hadn't said out loud. Keisha wasn't just a confidant anymore. She was becoming something else, something dangerous. That night, I went back to her place. I shouldn't have. But the moment she opened the door and saw the storm in my face, I felt the weight in my chest ease. "She's trying to take them from me," I admitted, my voice cracking. "She's trying to erase me." Keisha didn't flinch. She stepped forward, pressed her forehead to mine, and whispered, "Then don't let her. Fight, Robert. Fight with everything you have." Her words lit a fire inside me, but it wasn't just about the kids anymore. It was about survival. About proving I wasn't the weak, broken man Elaine wanted the world to believe I was. But deep down, I knew something else too. The more I leaned on Keisha, the more I was stepping into a future I didn't fully understand. She wasn't just holding me together, she was pulling me into her orbit. And Elaine wasn't wrong about one thing. Once I crossed that line, there'd be no going back. The war was no longer about betrayal. It was about possession. And I wasn't sure whose hands I'd end up in when it was over. I didn't plan on falling into Keisha's world, it just happened. One night blurred into another, my late hours at the office turning into quiet dinners with her, sometimes just take-out cartons on her couch while the city lights painted shadows across her living room. I told myself it was harmless, that it was just friendship, but the truth was uglier. I was leaning on her in ways I no longer leaned on my wife. She never pushed. That's what made it dangerous. Keisha knew when to stay quiet, when to let me breathe, when to slip in a sharp truth that cut deeper than I expected. With her, there were no masks. I didn't have to pretend I was strong. And that honesty felt more intoxicating than any lie Elaine ever told. One evening, after a long silence, Keisha finally said it. "You keep looking at me like I'm the answer, Robert. But I'm not. I can't fix what's broken in you." Her voice shook me. Because she was right, I wasn't just searching for comfort. I was searching for escape. Still, I couldn't stay away. Meanwhile, Elaine wasn't sitting idle. She sensed the distance widening, and instead of pulling back, she doubled down. She started showing up everywhere, at my office, at lunches with colleagues, even outside the building late at night. Always with that same desperate smile, like if she performed normalcy hard enough, it would erase the betrayal. One night she ambushed me in the driveway. The kids were asleep inside, the house quiet, but she stood there under the porch light, arms crossed, eyes blazing. "I know what's happening with you and her," she said. Her words hit me like a slap. "There's nothing happening," I lied, though even as I said it, the guilt burned in my throat. Elaine laughed bitterly. "Don't insult me, Robert. I see it in your face. I hear it in the way you say her name. You think I'm the only one who betrayed this marriage? Look at you." That cut deep because, for the first time, she wasn't wrong. I hated that she had ground to stand on. But instead of backing down, I snapped. "You don't get to talk about betrayal like you're the victim here. You blew this up, Elaine. You made this mess. I'm just trying to survive it." She stepped closer, tears forming, but her voice hard as steel. "If you think you're going to replace me with her, you're out of your mind. I won't let you take my children and build a new life with that woman. I'll fight you, Robert. With everything I have." Her threat lingered long after she stormed inside. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about love or lies anymore. This was about war. A war where the battlefield was our home, and the prize was everything I held dear. Later that night, I told Keisha what Elaine had said. She didn't look surprised. She just shook her head slowly. "She's not going to go quietly," Keisha murmured. "She'll use whatever weapon she has left. And if that means turning those kids into shields, she will." The thought made me sick. But Keisha wasn't finished. "You need to decide what you're willing to lose, Robert. Because Elaine already decided. And Derek." She trailed off, then looked at me squarely. "Derek will never truly let go either." Her words echoed in my head long after I left. I was caught in a triangle with no clean escape. Every choice carried blood, heartbreak, or betrayal. And yet, deep down, I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't keep living in the middle. Something had to break. And I was starting to realize that something might be me. Elaine didn't break me with her threats, but she came close the night Derek showed up at my door. I wasn't expecting him. The twins were already in bed, their small voices still echoing in my head from bedtime stories, when I heard the knock. Slow, steady, like he knew I'd hesitate before opening. When I saw his face through the glass, something in me snapped. "What the hell do you want?" I growled, stepping outside before he could see the inside of my house, the house that should have been untouchable. He lifted his hands like he was surrendering. "I'm not here to fight you. I just need to talk." I almost slammed the door, but his next words froze me. "She's dragging me into it, Robert. Elaine. She's trying to use me against you in court." The rage that flared inside me was different this time. Not the sharp stab of betrayal, but a slow, burning fury. Elaine wasn't just coming after me, she was willing to weaponize the very man who'd blown our marriage apart. Why would she do that? I asked, though the answer was already clawing at the back of my mind. Derek looked away. "Because if I admit what happened, she thinks the judge will see you as unfit. Too unstable to raise her kids." Her kids. The way he said it stung, even if he didn't mean it that way. I stepped closer, my voice low. "If you care about them at all, you'll stay out of this. Don't give her the bullet she needs to put me down." For once, he didn't argue. He just nodded, guilt etched into every line of his face. And in that moment, I realized Derek wasn't the enemy anymore. Elaine was. When I told Keisha later, she didn't look surprised. She just shook her head, her hand tightening around her glass. "She's desperate," she said. "Desperate people don't care who they burn. You need to be ready, Robert. Because the next move she makes won't just hurt you, it'll hurt them." Her words haunted me. And then it happened. Elaine showed up at the twins' school one afternoon with a lawyer at her side, waving documents, trying to pull them out early. The staff called me in a panic. By the time I got there, she was standing in the hallway, her voice raised, the twins clinging to each other in tears. "Elaine," I barked. "What the hell are you doing?" She spun on me, her face flushed, eyes wild. "I'm protecting my children. From you, from her, from this circus you've dragged us into." The kids cried harder at her words, their little hands reaching for me even as she tried to pull them close. The scene burned itself into my memory, the teachers watching, the lawyer smirking, Elaine unraveling in front of everyone. In that moment, something inside me hardened. There was no going back. No saving what was broken. That night, after tucking the kids into bed, I sat in Keisha's apartment, staring at the city lights. She leaned against the wall, arms folded, eyes locked on me. "You've already made your choice," she said quietly. I swallowed hard. "What choice is that?" "To let go of her," she answered, "and to hold on to me." Her words should have comforted me. Instead, they scared me. Because she was right. And because I wasn't sure if I was clinging to her out of love, or because she was the only one left when everything else crumbled. Still, I didn't push her away. I let her hold me that night, let her silence drown out the noise in my head. But the truth is, silence doesn't last. Elaine wasn't finished. She called me the next morning, her voice raw, almost broken. "You can't erase me, Robert. No matter what you do. I'll always be their mother. I'll always be the one you can't forget." And then the line went dead. Her words weren't wrong. She was a scar that would never fade. But as I sat there, phone in hand, Keisha's hand sliding into mine, I realized something else. Scars don't heal. They harden. They remind you every day of what was lost. And maybe that's all I'd ever have left. Reminders. Not forgiveness. Not peace. Just the ghost of a life I thought I had, and the weight of the choices I couldn't take back. The courtroom felt colder than any winter morning I'd ever lived through. The walls were beige, lifeless, but the tension was thick enough to choke on. Elaine sat across from me, her lawyer whispering into her ear while she kept her chin high, pretending she wasn't trembling inside. The twins weren't there, thank God, but their names were being tossed back and forth like poker chips. I sat still, jaw tight, eyes locked on the judge, but I could feel Elaine's gaze burning into me. She wanted me broken, humiliated. She wanted to strip me down until there was nothing left. Her lawyer painted me as unstable, reckless, even dangerous. They threw Keisha into the mix, calling her a woman of questionable influence, hinting at an affair, trying to drag my character through the mud. Every word was a dagger meant to slice me away from my children. When it was my turn, I stood slowly, steadying my hands against the table. My lawyer had prepped me with lines, but when I opened my mouth, only the truth came out. "I'm not perfect," I said, voice cracking through the silence. "I worked too much. I missed moments I'll never get back. But I have never stopped being their father. And no betrayal, no courtroom, no lies can change that. You can tear apart my marriage. You can shred my name. But you will not erase me from my children's lives." The words shook out of me like thunder. For a split second, even Elaine's mask cracked. Her eyes glistened, and I could see the war inside her, the part that hated me, and the part that knew I was right. The judge didn't give a ruling that day. They rarely do. But I walked out of that courtroom lighter, even with the storm still hanging above me. Because for once, I hadn't spoken as a husband, or a man scorned. I had spoken as a father. Outside, Keisha was waiting. She didn't rush to me, didn't hug me or whisper comfort. She just walked beside me, her presence steady, like an anchor I didn't deserve but couldn't let go of. That night, Elaine called. Her voice was soft, fragile, almost like the woman I married years ago. "Robert," she whispered, "if the judge sides with you, promise me one thing. Don't let them forget me." The line cut before I could answer. And it hit me, this wasn't just a fight about custody or love. It was about memory. About legacy. About who the twins would grow up believing was the villain, and who was the victim. Days turned into weeks. Papers filed, hearings postponed, whispers spreading through friends and neighbors. And in the middle of it all, I drifted further into Keisha's orbit. Her apartment became my refuge. Her voice became my sanity. But with every night I stayed there, a question gnawed at me. Was I building a new life, or just hiding from the ruins of the old one? The final hearing came. Elaine didn't look at me when the judge spoke, granting us joint custody but siding with me on primary placement. The decision was clinical, words on paper, but the effect was shattering. Elaine's shoulders slumped, her lips trembled, and for the first time, I saw her defeated. Afterward, she walked past me without a word, without anger, just a hollow silence that cut deeper than any scream. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt hollow too. That night, I stood at the train station alone, the city buzzing around me. I remembered the opening moment, the image burned into my memory. Elaine standing with the ring, me walking away. Back then, I thought leaving was the hardest choice. Now I knew better. The hardest choice wasn't leaving. It was living with what came after. Keisha called, her voice soft through the phone. "Come home," she said. And for a moment, I almost believed her apartment was home. But as I stood there, watching the trains rush past, one thought wouldn't leave me. Home wasn't a place anymore. It wasn't a person either. It was a ghost, something I had lost the night betrayal rewrote my life. I went to her anyway. I let her hold me. I let her silence drown out the ache. But deep down, I knew the truth. I hadn't won. I hadn't lost. I was something worse, caught in between, surviving on pieces of a life that would never be whole again. And maybe that's all there ever was left for me.